Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome for another edition of Sartorial Talks. Today we are not in Bourgogne, we are not in France, we are in the United States of America, and we are in Ohio, in Cleveland, Ohio, more precisely on the shore of the fantastic Lac Erie. It's a first for me because I've never seen one of these great lakes, and so I'm very happy. So I was about to say today we have a special guest, but actually today we have a special host, may I say, because I am with my friend Teddy Baldassarre. He is from here, from Cleveland, Ohio. We are in his father's house. So thank you for having me, Teddy, today.
Absolutely. Thank you for being
Teddy,
here.
You may or may not know him, so I'm going to ask him a little bit of quick summary of his career. But first, I would like to say that I love his name. And I was very surprised this morning when I arrived in his, when we met for the first time. We know each other since, I would say, a year or so, but the first time that we meet physically. And when I told him how beautiful his name was, he started to pronounce his name the American way. How do you pronounce it?
I say Baldassarre.
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 But in Italian we say Baldassarre.
Yes.
Which is much more beautiful, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's the way, and it's always surprising me how American they have problems with names like that. They try to put a lot of emphasis on the name, but no, hey, Teddy Baldassarre.
The story with that also ties in with the watches as well, because really what got me started in watches was a watch from my great-grandfather who emigrated from Italy, who I am named after, and he actually almost Americanized the last name because during the period where he was coming over, the Italians maybe weren't seen in the same way they are today.
Of course.
So he just wanted to fit in a bit more.
It's the same story for my name, actually, because my name is Giacomo, but before the war was Giacometti. And after the war, it was better not to have an Italian sound name, unfortunately. But I would love to have your name, Baldassarre. It's beautiful, because for us in the sartorial world, if you are following this channel since a long time, you probably know about the Book of the Courtier. It's a very important book for us. This is where the word sprezzatura appeared for the first time. And it's from a man called Baldassarre Castiglione. It's his given name, and this is your family name, right?
I stumbled on the term sprezzatura.
Yes.
And clearly, I'm not living up to that reputation. I have some work to do, supposedly. I have a name to represent sprezzatura, but what a fantastic term as well, just the effortless cool.
Exactly. Sprezzatura, well, if you know this channel and if you are following my channel and if you are watching, you are probably following this channel, we have a full show where I explain the sprezzatura, because this word has been changing a little bit meaning. Normally, more and more people, because it's a cool word.
It is a very cool word.
Everybody loves to say, oh, you have sprezzatura. Well, it means that you don't show your efforts when you dress up. It means that you dress it's nonchalance.
Yes.
You don't show, you don't showcase your efforts. You just showcase your elegance. But this is not the subject of today. The subject of today is, of course, watches. Before stepping onto a selection that Teddy prepared for me, to be honest, I've seen the selection just an hour before, but I'm not familiar with every watch here. This idea was to ask a watch specialist, to select some watches, classic watches, dress watches, sartorial watches, but in certain price brackets, like under 1,000, under 2,000, under 4,000 ultimately. So I have a beautiful selection. But before deep diving into this, tell us a little bit your story, because you made a name for yourself very quickly in the watch industry. I don't know, you started a few years ago, and now you are going bigger and bigger, and your name starts to be among the most important. So how all this happened to you?
Well, thank you first off for that wonderful introduction. I know we've just been going, but in terms of my story in watches, and probably very similar to you, it just happened out of curiosity.
Yes.
I am somebody that I get very into things, and when I can stumble on something with depth, that's where something really sticks. Okay. So it was around a decade ago, I started stumbling into this world of horology, and at the time I had no budget for them. So I would just learn where I could, and that would just be that. And I started building a very modest collection. And another passion of mine is video. So this digital world, and then you have this watchmaking, but really what brought me to love watches was just, again, that depth behind the hobby. You have history here. You have the mechanics of this. Of course. You have individual expression and how something that you can wear on your wrist can tell a story beyond you. This all fascinated me. And then eventually I started to get into it where I had my own collection, and in 2017 I decided to post a video. Okay. No expectation. I just posted a video of my collection, very just modest, humble
You
collection.
remember, it was about your collection
It was about my collection.
Do you remember the first watch you featured?
First watch I featured, I think it's actually one that we're going to show today.
Ah, okay.
And it will be how we start, so I don't want to spoil anything. But that was something that just happened. I decided to post it. I had no intention of what it would bring, and I've just been following the momentum ever since. So now we also are in e-commerce on the watch side. We reach about 4 million viewers a month on our content on YouTube, Instagram, and our other channels. So it's just been a wild ride.
Fantastic, fantastic, and it's very interesting for me because we know all this digital world has been a revolution. I will not be here without the digital world. You will probably not be here in the normal business. But it's very interesting that is the way the market, my market, the sartorial market, and your market and the watch market has been. The cards have been reshuffled more or less, right?
Completely.
What is the weight of the, how do you call it, digital born, you say this, digital born bronze? Is it heavy? Is it heavyweight in the market of watches or still upgoing?
So when you say digital market brands, are you speaking more like smartwatches?
Well, no, I'm speaking about watches that have been created on the web, the digital native brand. I don't know how you say it. There's a word for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what necessarily the term would be for that, but this whole world has been affected.
Yes.
We were talking even coming here, speaking about Basel World.
Yes.
The trade show events.
The trade show.
The trade show.
Yeah.
You're correct. And then also how these watches are sold. Even if, I'd say like 3-4 years ago, Patek Philippe wouldn't even show their prices online, let alone sell their watches. That's right. And that still does not exist to this day. They operate through an authorized dealer network, mostly through a brick and mortar network, and they've been very slow to adopt e-commerce and just digital messaging as well, print media. So it's completely changed in the last couple of years of how I think brands are looking at the messaging and what they need to do to tell their story appropriately. But what I've found with watches in general is they do have somewhat of a moat, at least mechanical watches, around maybe protecting themselves for the long term. Because at the end of the day, I think everything we're going to look at here, also for context, mechanical watches.
Yes.
Because I think there's a romantic idea around that.
Of course.
And with that, I do think that it's a different level of appeal that these have compared to maybe some other approaches in life. We look at technology, we look at innovation. This is not necessarily what we're seeing here. We're seeing an appreciation of the romantic idea about something that can maybe transcend us, something that can live beyond us. And I think that's what, I think in a world that's so disposable, when you can have something that can do that, that's why people are attracted to this.
My question was a little bit more precise than that. It was that, did you see from your perspective new players coming into the market, and only digital, the people who are cutting all the middle cost, the middleman, the brick and mortar shop and everything? My question was, did this movement, because I know there's a movement, even in my world, in the sartorial world, did this movement has been reshuffling the cards, or is the market still pretty much the same?
There have been some that have done things the right way, but also a lot of brands that have done it the wrong way. The direct-to-consumer, cutting out the middleman, this type of language and jargon has a lot of negative connotations with it as well.
Of course.
And I do find that there's some difficulty in just how watches are structured when it comes to parts compared to if you are a tailor, nothing is stopping you from getting started.
Well, I mean,
maybe
British fabrics these days, but that's another story.
Okay, but just the complexity of finding a movement, because at the end of the day, there are a handful of movement providers. If you're going to get started, no one is going to be able to make their own movement. It just is not going to happen.
Okay.
The amount of R&D required to make that is going to be in the 7 figures, if not more. You have trial and error. So it's been impacted. If the direct-to-consumer approach, certainly there have been brands that have come out of nowhere in some way. But I would say mostly the evergreen brands that have been around forever, this whole world around heritage, it has sustained in a way.
I understand. And thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God they're sustained. Okay, so the brief I gave Teddy, I'm saying, okay, listen, Teddy. My subscribers, our subscriber with Sonia on Sartorial Talks and Discussion Sartorial in French, he doesn't know for the moment. We're going to do a French episode after. I'm going to
do it all in French too. Just wait.
Yeah, he has a script and a teleprompter. I've been asked so many times about with what watch to wear with what kind of outfit. I'm not a professional of watch. I did on this channel, I think, 2 episodes.
I've seen one. I've seen one.
Yeah. Actually, the first one was shot during the first COVID. So it's shot in my little bungalow in the forest in North Georgia, like in between the kids' bed. There was just with an iPhone, because we couldn't go back to France. And it was quite successful. And my idea, and during those 2 videos, we're going to put the link of those 2 videos, was to look at the watches purely from a style perspective. That is to say, I'm a little bit educated in watches, but not much. And so I didn't feel legit to speak about watches in terms of mechanic, movement, all the guts of the watch itself. But from a styles perspective, of course, I had a few things to say. And so I asked Teddy to select, let's say, I don't know how many watches, probably 15 watches?
Give or take,
around 15. From very affordable to, let's say, affordable. So from $200 up to 4,000 and up, something like that. So something that can be, for most of you, affordable. And in any case, it's always a blast for me to really listen firsthand and to be seated with a watch expert so that we can exchange a few ideas. So as far as I see, you knew I was coming, so you selected only dress watches.
Correct. Dress watches and mechanical watches.
Yes.
So you're going to be using traditional mainspring, a classic Swiss lever escapement. That's what we're going for here.
And the first takeaway that we can have even before we start is that you don't need to be rich to have a proper watch on your wrist.
That is right.
Oh, that's a good claim. You don't need to be rich to have a proper watch on your wrist. It's a little bit long as a claim, but it works quite well.
A little tiny. I like that. That rolls off the tongue. I like it.
So let's start. So we're going to do from very affordable up to a little bit less affordable, but still affordable in horology. So let's start with the first one.
Okay. So the first 2 watches are from Japan.
Okay.
And Japanese watchmaking has a very storied history.
Yes.
And I think 2 brands that do a very nice job.
Yeah.
First here, I think the first watch, you asked me, what was the first watch on the channel?
That was this one?
It wasn't this exact one, but it was of this type. So this is known as the Orient Bambino.
Orient Bambino.
Yes. Japanese brand.
Fantastic.
Underneath the Seiko Epson Corporation.
Yes.
So they're mostly known from a dress watch perspective because of this watch, or Bambino. There's a wide variety of generations and versions. This is a Gen 2 version 2, which has a nice mix of traditional hands, Roman numerals, but the real thing that makes this watch special is Japanese movement.
Yes.
But the price.
Incredible price.
$150, give or take. And it's almost it's ludicrous, the fact that you could get a watch like this for this amount of money.
This is bizarre. Okay, disclaimer, I also selected this one in my episode on budget watch. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It's unmissable, right? It is just unmissable because even on the wrist, it works very well. You see that? It works with pretty much everything. I like the Roman figures like that. And but I have nothing to say. My only question and my only concern is how do they do to produce a watch which retail price is $150? I have no idea.
It's where they source the parts. I mean, I'm sure it's coming from different places around Asia. But on the dial it says Japanese movement. So.
And according to your experience, I don't know if it's your personal watch or it's another one, it's a long-lasting watch, no problem with it, very sturdy, no problem.
The Orient has good QC too. That's why I think it's also great to recommend them, because for $150,
this is crazy.
There's a lot of questions, mechanical watches. I mean, you can get plenty of things from like all these unknown sites, and you just don't know about the credibility behind the product. But anything under $200, I think this has, of any brand I've come across, some of the best QC you're going to find. It's a $150 watch at the end of the day, so there's still going to be challenges. Like if you're looking at a shoe, a Goodyear welt, you're going to see some issues with the welt. There's some imperfections, but for where it represents in the market, you can't question it.
That would be the equivalent of, we talked a little bit before, of Mermin in our world for shoes, or also another one that we love called CNES. They're in Singapore. They do stupendous Goodyear welted shoes for $160 or something like that, which is incredible. So Orient Bambino, well, I can vouch for that. This is in terms of value, I don't see any competitor to that.
It's hard to beat. It's very hard to beat. And there's a wide variety of dial that you can choose from, different styling. So whatever you like, if you like more of a minimalist approach, they have something like that. If you want traditional kind of hash marks.
Fantastic.
Plenty to choose from.
So let's continue. I'm very excited because there's a lot of beautiful dials in front of me. Let's go for the next step. So we're still in Japan, right?
We're still in Japan. So this, I would say, is the obvious next step, and this is a Seiko Présage. And you were actually educating me about the meaning of Présage. You want to tell people about that?
Yes, of course. So first of all, we don't say Présage, we say Présage.
Présage.
Présage. Because Présage is another word that means when you remember, back in the years, you were too young for that, we were doing the records. You know, vinyls
yes.
or even CDs. Pressage is when you duplicate them. It's called pressé in French, okay? Présage with one S in French is Z, présage, normally with an accent on the E. It means an omen or something that you foretell. I know that in the popular culture in the US, omen is very negative because of the movie and everything.
Yes.
But in French, it's a beautiful word. We call most of the time when we speak about présage, we put before an heureux présage, means a happy omen, something that's going to happen. So it's a sign that you see that is foretelling you what's going to happen. And présage, normally in France, when you use it, means it's something good's going to happen to you. And I believe that they named this watch with this idea. That is to say, to présage means you something happy and good's going to happen to you in the future. That's the origin of the word. And this is from Seiko in Japan, right?
Correct. And that Présage collection is really more encapsulating dress watches.
Yeah.
This is a subset underneath that collection. People commonly associate these dials to a thing called the Cocktail Time family.
Okay.
So they're a series of different watches released by Seiko that were made to resemble different cocktails. They have this fun textured dial to them, which although is going to be pressed and not going to be hand, but it looks stunning.
You're making a statement with that.
You are.
Immediately. You see, and you see, I didn't do it on purpose, ladies and gentlemen, but my shirt has the exact same color as the dial.
You're color coordinating today.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And you're making a pretty stylistic statement. So I really like Seiko. I like the Grand Seiko, of course, which is a little bit not in this price bracket.
It'll extend beyond our video here today, but that's a next step.
Fantastic watches. But Seiko, this is honestly, and how much is that?
$300 to $400.
Japanese I don't understand. These Japanese, they really hit the nail on the top. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, I really love that. So Présage by Seiko, and I particularly love this blue. Actually, I must admit. It comes in different colors, right?
Wide variety. You're talking greens, different shades of blue, different pops of colors with the second hand. There's a wide variety, this whole Cocktail Time family. If you just search that, you'll find. Yeah.
But what I like in Seiko is that you can still feel the Japanese idea behind. Not too much. Of course, in this case, the dial is very punchy, it's wow, directly.
But sun ray type of finish,
but otherwise it's very discreet. It's nothing, it's a beautiful one. Mechanical, of course. Yeah, beautiful. Nothing to say. 400, 3 to 400.
Yes.
350, let's say.
Yes.
I don't know in euro, we'll see, because it might be a little bit less, but with the taxes, I don't know if Seiko is less expensive in the US than in Europe. I have no idea, but it doesn't really matter. But we're in the same kind of range in any case.
Yes.
Huh?
I'll try to give a range. I'll try to stick to retail prices when I'm giving these recommendations so people aren't affected.
Okay, it's already hot here because I like those two already, Orion and Seiko. But I'm a Japanese. Japanese in the sartorial world, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very important country for us. I mean, when it comes to craftsmanship, to tradition, to well-made things, in any case, we always have Japan not far around the corner.
Absolutely.
Because they are very specific people. But in our trade, they have been probably the one who have been repopularized in a large scale. For example, bespoke shoemakers. People who are really doing shoes by hand. I think Japan now has the greatest number of bespoke shoemakers in the world.
Who's the bootmaker from there? John Lofgren?
Wow. And you have the most famous in these days in Japan called Yohei Fukuda.
Okay.
Very famous guy. And then you have also Thai shoemaker. You have a lot of different ones. But these people, for example, Thai shoemaker, I think these days you have a waiting list of 4 years because they are Japanese. They want to do things right.
And
nobody, how long it takes, it doesn't matter to them. They want to make things right, and so they refuse orders. Who will do that in the US? In the US or even in France, if you have extra orders, you hire somebody or no, not in Japan. They like things. So this is why I'm happy that we started with Japan. And paradoxically on the most affordable side of the collection, because this is a very, very important country for us. Let's continue. Maybe one day or another. I thought we were going to go in Switzerland immediately, but no. We started with Japan. Do we go in Switzerland next?
We're headed to Switzerland next. So I have 3 brands here that I think represent this next tier. Not necessarily saying that they're better, but they still present incredible value.
Okay.
One of the pillars is Tissot. Okay. So I would say in terms of maybe being the definitive entry-level Swiss brand, they have to be in the conversation.
Okay.
They're one of the few brands that are selling close to $1 billion a year in revenue still. So they're a top 5, 6 brand.
Are they autonomous or they're part of a group?
They're part of the larger group of Swatch Group, and actually these 3 brands we're going to be looking at are.
Ah, okay.
And that's one of the big upsides with these brands, and big reason is their accessibility to movements. Okay. So when we're talking about that challenge of maybe going direct to consumer, a big challenge with it is the fact that Swatch owns one of the largest Swiss providers of movements in ETA or ETA.
Of course, ETA. It's part of the Swatch Group. I didn't know that. So they are, of course, in pole position to have a proper movement for the watch, no matter the price. So let's go into this Tissot. This is the next one you want to show?
Yes, this is called the Le Locle. And this is one of their 3 most popular collections. This comes in a very nice, vivid, midnight blue, Roman numerals on the outside.
I'm an old man, I have to do that, I'm sorry. Le Locle, of course.
Le Locle.
Yeah. Le Locle. It's challenging.
Stay tuned for the French episode, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, this is beautiful. So Tissot, you say it's part of a Swatch Group, but it's the, how much is that? 800, 1,000?
Not even 600.
600?
$630 on the bracelet. And you could find them off the bracelet for a little bit less than that.
So same thing, mechanical.
Mechanical Swiss movement now.
Yeah.
The great thing about being a part of the Swatch Group and these brands is many of them will have an 80-hour power reserve movement. So what they're doing is they're taking a standard ETA-based caliber and slowing the beat frequency. So just, I don't want to get into this much of this, but
go ahead.
Watches, they act very much like a grandfather clock. All mechanical watches, how they work is based on a gradual oscillation or movement back and forth of a thing called a balance wheel. So there's a mainspring that uncoils and goes down a gear train, and then there's this thing that is, it's called the balance wheel, that just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the amount of times it goes back and forth in a second is a way that it's going to tell time. And there's different frequencies that are going to be done to allow it to keep that time.
Okay.
What they're able to do because it's beating less is they can actually maximize the reserve of that mainspring. So they still use the same consistency of going back and forth, and they use that as a timing increment to extend the power reserve of that mainspring. That's going to be kind of like that power cell in a way.
But this one is automatic. That is,
it's automatic.
It's winding with the movement of your wrist, right?
It'll have an oscillating weight on the back side, so that's a rotor, and it'll rotate, and that'll wind that mainspring. So the mainspring is that's the source of power for these watches.
And you say 600 for that?
600 for that.
And Le Locle it's a collection with many different kinds of... Okay. But this one is beautiful with a blue dial, and it's a little bit guilloché. I don't see it.
Yes, it's clearly a pressing
technique.
Kind of
guilloché.
Yeah. So it's not you're not doing rose engine, but it's still it achieves that effect and
but
nice texture.
And in your opinion, for 600, you can't do much better than this, right?
No, you can't. No, you really can't. It's a fantastic watch.
Okay, great. So it's Tissot Le Locle Powermatic 80.
Yes, so 80-hour power reserve, which is one thing to maybe consider if you are somebody that wants that. You don't have to worry about, okay, I put it down in the dresser for a few days, I can come back to it, it'll still be keeping time. That's where the power reserve comes in, because all of these mechanical watches, they will eventually run out of power when that mainspring is completely uncoiled, and that's when the time is done.
That's cool.
So
let's move forward.
Moving right along. So this is Hamilton. Yeah. Now Hamilton has...
So I thought it was American. It's roots, American roots.
American roots. So they were started in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Lancaster. I don't want people coming after me. It's Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Lancaster.
You're going to be showing me out all day in my pronunciations. I have to do something, right? But they were started in the U.S., and they had operation here for over half century. And then in 1969, they moved production over to Switzerland. Okay. So where they're making their watches. But still, rich history, mostly known for their field watches they supplied to the Allied forces during World War II. Mostly is where they started to really grow in that area. Yeah. But they still do some fantastic things in the dress category. This is known as their Intra-Matic. What I like about...
How do you call it?
Intra-Matic.
Okay.
Automatic watch as well.
Yeah.
It has this champagne dial that I just really like.
Yes, I like the mood. I can tell from the distance. I like the mood. For me, It looks like a 1950 watch.
So they had these watches called the Chronomatics.
Yes.
And those were really mid-20th century watches. And this takes a lot of inspiration from some of those designs. And also the logo itself is an older logo from around that period.
Yeah. But it's very, I mean, this kind of champagne dial with, this is beautiful. This is, for me, this is more of a kind of an evening watch, actually. It's very versatile. Actually, very versatile. So it's made now in Switzerland. When you said they went to Switzerland in '69, and since '69 they never stopped. It's not a brand that has been revived recently, right? It never stopped.
Yeah, they've continued production. I mean, there were a period called the quartz crisis in watchmaking where many brands fell in hard time, and that's why you have these larger conglomerates owning the majority of the brands now, because Nick Hayek, what he did was he was able to acquire many of these brands, like a Hamilton.
Mr. Hayek.
Yes, exactly. So. When a lot of the brands were falling on hard times, when quartz watches just took over the world, part of the Japanese in 1969, this shifted the entire landscape of mechanical watchmaking. So there's been a, kind of rounding up of many of the brands into
But
group
even
structures.
if they are in the Swatch group, you still feel the identity of Hamilton.
Absolutely.
Right? This
Absolutely.
is what they did really well, actually.
They did.
To protect this identity. I love this watch, I must say. I love the simplicity of it. And this champagne dial, okay, maybe for a French guy, champagne is ringing a bell, but it's actually fantastic. How much?
That one is just north of $800.
Okay, $800. Wow, this is insane. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, we only at watch number 4, but I cannot really tell that 150 for the Bambino, 400 for the Seiko, 500, a little bit under 600 for the Tissot, and this one a little bit under 800?
Right above $800.
Okay, so which is, you see, we are talking about reasonable prices. Of course, 800 can be nothing for people and can be a lot for others, but we are talking here about mechanical watch that can last a lifetime, pretty much, right? If you maintain them, I mean, if you don't throw them and service them every...
I'll say this, anything under $1,000 that you buy elsewhere, you're going to be hard-pressed to find something that's going to outlive under $1,000. Anything else you buy, these watches.
So let's continue. We're still in Switzerland, right?
We are in Switzerland. So this is another brand, Mido.
Never heard about that.
Mido.
Yeah.
So Mido is
Is it a famous brand?
So part of the Swatch Group, but it's a little bit less known.
Okay.
A little bit less known.
I feel like I'm very stupid that not to know this brand, but
no, I think
this is the first time I hear about it.
Although they're in a group structure, they are, I would say, an underrated brand.
Okay.
Very underrated brand. Now they are slightly above the prices of some Hamiltons and Tissots that we're looking at.
So we are just under 1,000?
Just under 1,000, correct.
Okay.
But this is called their Baroncelli Heritage.
Yeah.
And it's just classic, just traditional dress watch in many ways. Maybe not the most showy on the table here, but if you want conventional looks, and what I also like about this, and maybe if you look at like the hands, they have this brushing and polishing technique which allows them to really pop out.
Yeah, it's very matte.
Yes.
It's very interesting, actually.
And which is an element that's used by a lot of high-end makers, like something like Vacheron Constantin with their Traditionnel. They do something very similar with their hands, has that very kind of fine grain or pebbled-like dial.
Actually, and it's as if you offset the fact that there's a mirror. You almost have the impression there's no mirror in front of it. There's no glass. It's very beautiful. So tell me, there's a name on this called? Baroncelli.
Baroncelli.
Baroncelli Heritage. So these are beautiful. So they have a large range of watches, these people?
Yes, yes. They're mostly known for their dive watches, so something like the Ocean Star.
Like sports watch.
Sports watches, they're multi-fort, which are more kind of to the everyday tool watch variety. But this is, I'd say, around $1,000, one of the best dress watches that you can find.
Okay.
Beautiful Swiss watch, well finished, interesting dial. Rather conventional and traditional.
Yeah, it is.
But
it is beautiful.
Never going to look out of place. I think the one thing that is a discussion is versatility.
Yes.
When you tell someone to invest in, say, their first suit, you are going for versatility to begin.
Yes.
When you go for your watch, you want to probably have versatility as well.
Of course.
So that's something where I see with that watch.
And with this, you can pretty much wear it in different occasions, all the occasions in life. It's never out of place, this thing. Unlike, for example, the Tissot, the blue, dark blue is more for night, in my opinion. But we'll debrief after. For the moment, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm the spectator. Okay, now I know this one.
You know this one. You want to tell me about it then?
Bauhaus.
That's correct.
It's an inspiration from this. It's from Germany, right?
Correct.
So it's how do you call it?
Max Bill.
Max Bill, who was a guy of the Bauhaus. Bauhaus is a school of architecture. It's in Germany, and it's been at the helm. It's been triggering a movement, actually, post-constructivism, which is very interesting. It's more like an architect, and you can see in this watch, it's something, I don't know how to explain it, but it's immediately German, and it's immediately Bauhaus for me. It has a kind of its own aesthetic.
There's nothing else like it, and that's why I like it. And this is just around $1,000 as well. We're just north of $1,000 now. Wide variety of options here.
Yep.
The Bauhaus School of Design was in operation from, I believe it was 1919 to 1932.
Yeah.
And Max Bill was a designer, graduate. He's a Swiss designer. And he was first contracted by the brand to make wall clocks.
Oh, okay.
And he then also made the Max Bill watch as well.
Yeah.
And this is almost like an ineffable design in a way. You can't really find words to describe it. It's so simple, and some people will say sterile.
Yeah.
But I think the magic to it is this bubbled curvature to the crystal.
Yeah.
And then you also have such a slim bezel. It's all dial.
Yeah, exactly.
It pops out at you.
Exactly. You don't see the case.
You don't see the case.
Yeah.
It's just this clean.
It's a dial.
And with that context of the wall clock, that's how I almost see it. It's like a clock for your wrist. He almost adapted what was designed to something that could just sit on the wall, and how could you maybe adapt that to your wrist? That's kind of what I get. There's no bezel to speak of. It's very thin.
Yeah.
It also has a curvature to the edge of the dial,
beautiful.
so it just pops out at you.
Yeah, I love it. I have nothing to say about that. So the brand is Junghans?
Junghans.
Junghans. It's funny because I'm discovering the Junghans Bauhaus Max Bill. And this is a little bit above $1,000?
A little above $1,000. There's a wide variety to choose from. Black dials, ones with numerals, no numerals, ones with dates. But this is the most minimalist of approaches.
I love that. And it's very safe, right?
Very safe.
Yeah, okay.
It could be working casually too. I could see that looking great everywhere.
Yeah, this I would see a little bit more casual for me.
Yes.
But still, it depends on the wristband, actually. Because you can make it, if you do it with a dark burgundy wristband in a maybe exotic skin, we can make it a little bit more night. But it's very versatile too. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's continue. I'm excited.
Okay, I think actually what we should do is, because we're in Germany, I think we should finish up our time in Germany and let's go over to another brand. Yes.
That I know. Actually, they look a little bit alike, I must say.
They do.
They have a little family trait. It's a family spirit, a little bit. This one is, I know it also, it's from Glasshutte.
This one is from Glasshutte.
So Glasshutte, ladies and gentlemen, for the people who are not into the watch industry, is not a brand, it's the name of a little city in which pretty much...
small village outside of Dresden.
In Germany, formerly East Germany.
Yes, and this whole brand rose after the fall of the Berlin Wall, so 1990. So Nomos as a brand is relatively young.
Yes.
They created their first watches in 1992, and I would say probably one of the best success stories when it comes to watchmaking in the last 30 years.
Okay.
And I think that's for a variety of reasons. One is they have this minimalist approach to design and a silhouette that is with these longer lugs and also just some Bauhaus influence as well with what they're going after. But very German made. But I think that, yes, please. I think the main thing that I like about Nomos, which people don't, I think, consider as much, is their movements.
Oh, yeah?
Their movements are fantastic. So what you have inside there is one of their basic calibers. What they were navigating when they first came out with the Alpha Manual, which is the movement. So it's a manual wound watch. So most of these that we've been looking at have been automatic.
This is a manual one.
That's a manual wound.
Yeah, to do it by hand.
Yes, exactly. And the Alpha Manual was produced once they were having issues getting access to third-party movements. Okay. So they were like, okay, well, we have to make a decision. We have high production volume, because they do, for an independent brand, they're one of the highest producers of watches. I think.
You mean in terms of quantity?
In terms of quantity.
Oh, wow.
So they're producing a lot of watches as an independent, so they're independently operated. But they had to make a decision. How do we keep up production while still not falling short when it comes to our movements? So they decided to move into the world of manufactured calibers. This was their first introduction with the Alpha Manual. It resembles a very famous ETA movement, or the Pazoo 7001. It's a beautiful hand-wound movement. You can see, I mean, for around $2,000, I mean, you get a view of that movement. It's nice. It's not going to blow you away, but for somebody that doesn't know, and
that's a real movement.
Yes,
of course.
Yes,
beautiful. Well, I like Nomos. I think it's a very safe bet also, and but yeah, there's kind of a family feeling. It's a German family feeling.
That's why I wanted to get us. That's why I wanted to jump right to that, because that's where a lot of people consider. And I have a whole video talking about getting into the details of the differences between the brands, because this to me is more contemporary.
Yeah,
it's more contemporary, avant-garde. This is more mid-20th century approach to that design.
I would say 1960 actually.
Yes.
So the not this one, but the Nomos is a little bit
more expensive because you're paying more for the movements.
Okay.
So that's closer to $2,000.
$2,000.
Yes.
But same thing. It's an amazing bet for the amazing value, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's continue.
Okay.
So we're back to Switzerland.
Yes, we're back to Switzerland. So let's move to our next one here. Now, one of my favorite complications, I don't know how familiar some of your followers are with. I'm sure they are. So, is a moon phase.
Of course.
It's just something romantic about it. Maybe not the most practical thing in the world, but it just.
Well, I was told that nobody is using the moon phase for real, but it's a decoration stuff.
Yes.
By the way, it works, right? It's easy to have. You can go on the internet and see on which moon phase you're at.
Yep.
And then it will be. But most of the people, they don't bother. I know, but it doesn't really matter because it is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Because we are fascinated by the moon.
Yes.
You understand? When you say moon phase, it's fascinating. The moon is fascinating.
And there's a tie between the celestial bodies of the universe and just and time, and this whole thing works.
Yes.
But this is a brand called Raymond Weil.
I didn't know they were independent.
Yes, independently operated. I think family operated as well.
Okay.
I think it's still in the family, and they're still.
And once again, excellent value.
Yes, we're dealing more with the $1,000 to $2,000 range. This is kind of smack dab in the middle of that. But getting a moon phase for this price range, this is where it starts to make a lot of sense.
And it's a serious moon phase. It's not just a real moon phase.
Yep, Swiss movement. I also like that wave textured dial at the center, almost like a serpent type of texture to the central dial surface, Roman numerals.
Yeah.
It has many of the classic elements.
How big, what is the circumference? What's the size of this?
I believe that is 38.
38, yes. I've always been more attracted to a little bit smaller watches, actually, but it's just a matter. This one is a 38 too, actually. Yeah.
That one's 40, I believe.
40.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I could double check that, but I believe that's 38.
Yeah. This is beautiful. So this is part of a specific collection. This one, it has a name or
Maestro.
Maestro
Collection. Yes.
That's cool.
Maestro moon phase.
So Raymond Weil, beautiful watch, very classic. I like the Latin numbers. Beautiful. Okay. Ooh, the game, ladies and gentlemen, normally at the end I will select my top 3, but I already pretty much made my mind, but I don't know what's coming after. Okay, now let's continue. We stay in Switzerland.
Correct.
And it's the first non-round watch that you are suggesting to me. It's rectangle, square?
Oh yeah, rectangle, I suppose, right? Yeah. Go back to geometry class for a second. I believe that's correct. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
It is rectangle.
So
it's a Cartier feeling.
Yes, like a Mustang Cartier, kind of with these colorful dials. So this is a brand Oris, another independent brand. Really, where they're known for is in this price segment between, I would say, like $1,800 and $4,000. They make a lot of these watches. One of the probably most successful independent watchmakers in that price range. Okay. And this is known as the Rectangular.
Rectangle?
Rectangular.
I didn't know. I promise I didn't know.
Yeah, rectangular.
Okay.
But they come in a variety of different colors. This is actually a newer release from them. But with all this fascination around this style of watch, now Cartier releasing their Mustang Cartiers and relaunching that collection with the colors, I feel like there's an appropriate audience for that. And it's a fun way to express some personality.
Yeah, it's different. But normally if I would wear a rectangle watch, I would wear it a little bit bigger. But this one is, I never consider this kind of proportion on my wrist. Do you think it's cool, actually?
I think it looks great from Switzerland. What is your thoughts on wearing a watch with certain attire? I mean, for like something like that, like could you wear that with maybe a tuxedo? Is that like a night out? Or no?
Well, not really, because this is dark blue.
If it was like white or black?
Actually, it depends on the wristband also. This one is, I would change the wristband. If you change the wristband to black, then maybe you can go to black tie with that, maybe. But black tie is very codified. It's in the word black. You know, so most of the time in the black tie, even you will go for a black dial. But no, this you can wear. I'm a little bit. It's surprising to be the proportion because it looks very small on my wrist. But I will wear this pretty much in a kind of a dressed up occasion. I don't see myself wearing this in a more casual setting, even if casual for us doesn't mean much. Yeah, I think I can wear this more with a dark suit for sure. and black shoes, dark blue shoes. I don't know. I have to think about this one.
Okay.
Let's continue. So we stay in Switzerland?
Stay in Switzerland. So this is a brand, Tudor.
Tudor.
The sister brand of Rolex.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And this collection is called the 1926. So founder of Rolex, Hans Wilsdorf, he registered the name Tudor in 1926. So this is almost going back to that era and kind of paying tribute. So this classic dress watch style, it has kind of this waffle texturized pattern, more leaf style hands at the center. There's a variety of different dial colors, case sizes to choose from.
Oh, yeah, that's very modern. Actually, it's modern, right? This because it's from far I could say there's a kind of a guilloche-like feeling.
Yes, exactly.
It's more geometric. It's more, yeah, it's cool actually. But it's a little bit more sporty for me, this one. It's maybe because of the numbers. They are not in Roman letters.
Yes,
yeah?
You get the numbers. And Tudor as a brand, they're known for their military dive watches.
Okay.
So they made watches for the Marine Nationale.
Okay, la Marine Nationale.
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
For many years with their Submariner models, like their Snowflake Submariners. They now are known for mostly the Black Bay, which is their dive watch. But this is an extension more back into their, say, like the Oyster Prince and those watches.
Yeah. When you say that it's sister brand to Rolex, it's still a sister brand to Rolex, right? I mean,
correct.
They're still in the same company.
Yes, they're still operated by Rolex, and they're more seen down market compared to Rolex. Rolex has now ascended into a different price sphere, but more in the price range around $2,000 to $5,000, where Tudor really occupies.
And this very one will cost
$2,000.
$2,000. Well, that's a good. And then for you, same thing. It's very serious, safe bet, very reliable watch.
Reliable watch. You know, Rolex Tudor QC is typically very good, and also there's a sense of brand equity in getting into a brand like Tudor for around $2,000. This is really an entry-level position for that brand, which is why I wanted to include it.
That's cool. Let's continue with this. Which one?
I actually want to grab
this one.
I actually want to grab this next because we're kind of ascending in order of price.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So this is Longines.
Okay.
And one of the top 5 manufacturers in terms of revenue and production. Very popular in Asia, but still, when it comes to history, you really can't beat Longines. Their history and aviation timepieces.
And chronometer for
absolutely
sports events and stuff like that. Yeah,
of course. So around since 1832. And this watch, one of my favorites, and it has a specific dial type that has become popular again. It's called the sector dial. A sector dial.
Okay.
And it's described by having these 2 concentric outer tracks that help judge the minute and hours.
Okay.
So this is, you know, Patek has done this. Omega had watches in the 1930s and 40s where this became popularized again. This is pulling back from their archive.
It's funny because I remember we spoke about this brand from France that you didn't bring the watch, and I can see Baltic into this. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. They have their own sector dial. So this has
become not so bad.
Not so bad. You're learning, and I'm learning French. This is great. We're both winning today.
Well, Longines is a very safe bet. It's very famous also in my country.
Yes.
And I mean, it's stylish and it's affordable, and it's like I mean, yeah, I don't know.
That's one of my watches. Yeah. Oh no. This is one of my just random clasps that I have on here, or bracelets.
Yeah. This is cool. I agree with you. This is, well, I've seen some more thinner ones at Longines, because this one is a little bit thick for me.
A little bit thicker. It's automatic. Some of their manual wound calibers are going to be thinner because it doesn't have that oscillating weight, but they are one of the benefits of also being in the Swatch group.
Yes.
They're also in the Swatch group, and they're kind of next tier up from many of the brands that we were looking at.
So we are around $3,000?
This is just north of $2,000. So on the strap around $2,200. And then for the bracelet a bit more than that.
Okay. But it's same thing. You will never go wrong with Longines, right?
No, absolutely not. If I think about $2,000, what presents the best value, Longines has got to be on a short list of brands there. And many dress watches also to get lost in. They're one of the few brands that actually hasn't forgot how to make a proper dress watch, in my mind.
Okay. Now we stay in Switzerland?
Well, I want to go in order of price. And this is the next step up in terms of price here.
Yeah.
So this is a brand, a Scottish brand.
Scottish.
I
didn't know the Scottish will do anything else but whiskey, but they do something different.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
So this is
I'm joking. If you're Scottish, I know you do tweed very well. We did a documentary on Harris Tweed in the Hebrides Islands of Scotland. This is a very interesting place. You're very good at whiskey, the best in the world. Specifically in the Islay, the Speyside, the Highlands. I mean, all.
Why do I feel like they're not going to be offended? The Scottish have a good sense of humor. They typically do, so they're not going to be offended. Don't worry.
And then on top of that, they also okay at rugby. We're much better than them, but they are okay at rugby. And they race very good salmon in Scottish. But I didn't know they were into watches.
Well, typically they're not.
No,
this
they're not.
This is a hidden jewel brand. I adore what this brand is doing. It's called Anordain. What makes this brand special is their enamel dials.
Enamel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the process of using this powdered glass, high temperature heat to create these beautiful rays. This is known as their plum dial.
Oh, wow.
And you can see just how eye-catching it is. It's more striking. Maybe talk about that.
You see how the light is going inside. It's almost, it's very, very impressive. That's typically for me, I don't know where, it doesn't really matter. That's typically for me, it's a good surprise. I didn't know, say the name again?
Anordain.
Anordain, oh wow. I have to look into this. And yeah, the animal, you can see it's making a little bit of dots. It's beautiful. Yes. And it's on purpose. It takes the light a very, yeah, this is a statement watch.
It is, and it's $2,400 for that watch.
Oh wow.
The problem with them right now is because they rely so much on this enameling process that they're very backed up on production. So at the time of probably watching this video, they might not be available, but just stay put. They're great artisans, good people, and great brand to support.
And they are really in Scotland.
In Scotland, yes. I'd recommend investigating this brand. Phenomenal brand.
Oh wow! And the movement is a Swiss movement.
Swiss movement on the inside, correct.
Okay. But this animal is such a good idea. Oh my God.
It's one of the best exercises of creativity and hand craftsmanship that you can execute in a watch. Because at these prices, you're not dealing with the hand-finished components of a movement.
Of course not.
It's the dial. It's the dials where you can tell the story and really show that craftsmanship to a degree. Because most of them are using just off-the-shelf movements for the most part.
You can tell I'm in love with the watch already. It is what it is. But in terms of aesthetics, honestly, and normally I really like thinner watches, but this one has a lot of, the animal makes the whole difference. It's really beautiful watch.
I had a feeling you might like that one. Yeah, so that's good.
I'm really impressed. Let's continue. 3 to go.
3 to go. Let's start looking back at one of my favorite vintage watches.
That's a vintage watch.
So there's one vintage watch. I wanted to do it. It's one of my personal watches. This is one that I think opened the floodgates to vintage timepieces for myself. Okay. And this is from Omega.
Yes.
Constellation. So this is known as, has a pie pan dial.
Okay.
That's what collectors will call this, because it has this protruding central portion of the dial that resembles a pie pan.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that's why you see that elevated point, and then you have these arrowhead indices, that's called an arrowhead. These were watches that were in one of the long-standing collection with Omega. It was unveiled in 1952. And these watches, you have the little observatory on the back.
Oh, wow.
This was the watch that they really positioned as their watch for chronometric performance. It was the Globe Master, which is part of the Constellation line, was a watch that was also using their META certification, which is their certification they use for a master chronometer.
Okay.
So this is a watch that has cool history. There's also some Gerald Genta connection from the Constellation family. Some mixed history there, but he's of course the producer of maybe some of the most iconic watches of all time as the designer. And it's just class. It's just simply class.
It's just class. You nailed it. And you see, so Omega is a good brand for the people who are interested in secondhand, right?
I believe so.
There's a second market
with
Omega, which is very rich.
And they made so many great watches in like the 20th century.
Yes.
And you can find, whether you're looking at something like this, maybe the Seamaster DeVille. You could also go for something with the 30T2 movement, which was very famous during the 1940s, that era.
Okay.
All of these watches typically could be found between $1,500 and say $4,000. So definitely be careful when you're getting in the world of vintage. It's a different animal, but just buy from a reputable seller. You can find some cool things. And I know in the sartorial world, I just felt like it would be such a horrible omission to not have a vintage watch here.
Just one question: on your website, on your shop, on your e-shop, you have a second-hand section?
We do have a second-hand section, but we don't really get into the world of vintage too much, just because it's
another world.
It's another world.
Yeah.
It's another world. You have to take the mind of a historian, and also the challenge with a lot of mechanical parts like this is they're no longer making them. Like these movements are, as you know, when you're dealing with whether you're talking your glasses that you're wearing right now. Talk about that finite good that you're dealing with, no longer in production. It's hard to really navigate that. So
what I like in this one, so you say it's early 50s, 1950s?
This is early 1960s actually.
60s, yeah.
Yes.
It looks like this is very, very small dial in comparison to what we do in 2022.
I believe that's the smallest on the table. It's 34 millimeters.
Yeah, it is. But it's still very elegant. You see that? Yeah, that's nothing to say. Omega is a very safe bet. I love it. I personally own an Angelus.
Yes, you're telling me.
Which is a beautiful watch, but I forgot here.
Yeah, you had one job, Hugo.
I had to forget. I had to remember one thing, is to bring my watch. And guess what? I forgot. I know that Angelus, mine is a moon phase with it's from 1951. I think it's exactly dated. It was a military watch with a moon phase, which was kind of strange actually. Cool. And it's a beautiful watch, but it's same thing. I don't really use the moon phase, but I think it's a very romantic watch. And so I forgot it. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but we can maybe show it in a picture. This is a little bit bigger, this one now.
Yes, that is a...
I'm sorry, I'm going into that. Okay. The last two, which one?
Your eyes went here. We were starting to talk about this watch already. So this is a Frederique Constant.
Frederique Constant, yeah.
Frederique Constant. No T, no T.
No, Frederique Constant.
I'm learning. So another independent brand, or actually they were formerly an independent brand, but now are owned by the Citizen Watch Group, a Japanese conglomerate. But they are very, very well known for their ability to create, I would say, great value pieces that pull from some of the high horology brands and are able to do it in a much more attainable package. This, to me, is one of the more interesting pieces. This is known as their World Timer.
Okay.
So the World Time complication allows you to see all 24 different time zones. Yeah. And what makes this one unique is you're able to operate all of that function with one single crown. So no pushers, nothing in addition to that. And then what you could do is once you set your appropriate time to your home time up there, you then have reference to the entire globe, 24 time zones. So if you're, international traveler, you do business in different parts of the globe, it's a useful complication. Now there's a variety of different dial colors. The one that we have here is a bit more showy, which I don't know if is necessarily the sartorial way.
It is a little bit showy, but I like it because it looks like the French flag.
Okay, yeah.
White, blue, red. It looks like the French flag. Well,
it looks like
it's a little bit more. It's a little bit too busy for my taste. But I appreciate that you attract the attention to Frederique Constant because I know they do some pretty decent dress watch also.
They do moon phases, a classic index watch for entry level. Dress watch for around $1,000. Great watches. And manufacture movements for a lot of their higher end models as well. So very nice.
Well, that's beautiful. Frederique Constant. And the last but not least, so I'm going to announce this one and he's going to comment. It's a Baume Mercier.
Correct.
It's a Baumatic.
Clifton Baumatic.
5 days chronometer. What does it mean? It's 5 days is the reserve of work?
Correct. So that power reserve we talked about at the beginning, that mainspring and its ability to be fully wound, it will then be able to last that duration of 5 days.
So explain this one.
So this watch is, I think, another underrated watch. We talked about Mido, around $3,000. This is, I think, one of the interesting presentations of value for the money.
Okay.
This is a dress piece for them. Now, the Clifton Baumatic is the name. Variety of dollar colors, but I think that actually the reason why this watch is impressive to me is the movement. So this is a Richemont Group brand.
Okay.
So they have their own movement provider as well that they're producing watches very similar to ETA. And that's where they're having the upside of being able to have that 5-day power reserve, which I will say, compared to many of these other watches, is blowing everything else away. So
this complication, 5 days reserve.
5 days, having that ability. So I mean, you could imagine this. You could go, wear it, on the weekend.
Yeah.
This could be your weekend watch, and then you pick it up next weekend. You
have. And then you don't have to.
You don't have to wind. No winding. So that's the cool aspect.
It's a performance, for sure.
$3,000. Well done, underrated. It's
very class.
It speaks for itself. It has that.
Yeah. Speak for itself is exactly what I. Well, actually, is Baume Mercier a little bit underrated? You said
they are. And the brand's falling in a little bit of more difficult times at the moment, but they're still, I think, when it comes to value and also being maybe overlooked by many.
Yeah,
this sits in a very nice price range for me. I think for the type of person that might be watching you, they could be the right person to appreciate that watch and what it represents as more of a dress-oriented piece that also has some casual upside.
It is beautiful. Okay. Thank you, Teddy.
Of course.
That was a
What did you like?
Ride. Well, I'm gonna.
What do you like? Pick out your top 3 to 4.
I would say 3.
Okay, 3.
I would say 3. You have to limit yourself, otherwise I could pick probably 6 or 7 of them. But I would say for sure this one.
Anordain.
I'm going to say it in French. Anordain. It's a very strange. Anordain, maybe because it's Scottish. I don't know how they pronounce this. Anordain. This is a very good surprise for me. So let's say, of course, I can't go without this because the Bambino Orion is an incredible watch, and the Seiko, because I think this is for the value. Honestly, those two can't be beaten. And if I have, so I would say, yeah, this is my. You see, I'm not arrogant. I took the two less expensive, most attainable, yeah. And then I took this one because I love. So this Bambino Orion, $150. If you have a little cousin or a boy, and you want to educate them in what is a proper watch, something classical that will never be bored with, because I mean, it's beautiful aesthetics, and for the price, you can't go wrong with that. Orient Bambino remains one of my favorites in terms of value. Of course, the Présage by Seiko, because first of all, I like Seiko, and on top of that, I think that this work on the dial, it's pretty impressive, you must admit, and it's still, it has a Japanese, how do you say that? It's very discreet, and at the same time, it's very show-off. There's some Japanese magic into that I really like. And this one is a revelation for me. Anordain, and I think I'm going to buy one for me soon, because I think, so they do different colors on the end.
They do,
right?
all wide variety of different enamel dials.
So you say they have back orders a lot, right?
Yes, okay, because of the process.
I have a good friend called Teddy Baldassarre who can help me maybe with them.
I can make an introduction.
You can make an introduction to these people. Okay, well, that was a blast, but honestly, I would say also, if I had to do a fourth one, I would do with the Hamilton.
Hamilton, all right.
Because I like this 1950 feel. It can really easily look like a vintage watch from far. For me, of course, not with these boundaries, because the strap is a little bit modern. But this can really look, it has some kind of a natural patina that I really like, and this I can.
It's almost like a salmon champagne dial, which is very popular now. But put like a reptilian, I could see you with a reptilian strap or something of that sort.
Exactly, and this can be supremely elegant, because this is in between. This champagne dial, it can be night, it can be evening, day, I'm not sure, but evening and night for sure.
No second hand either. Look, there's no second hand, which is another interesting trait about that watch.
Oh wow!
Just a design trait.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it was designed originally in the US, so you see, it's very interesting. Thank you, Teddy. A little bit of promotion. Your shop is teddybaldassarre.com.
Correct.
We'll put the link in the description.
Thank you very much.
You service all around the world? You dispatch around the world?
Yeah, mostly. Most of what we have to do, there's sometimes it's very territorial games, mostly the United States. But reach out to us, we'll help you.
For the moment, mostly United States, but if somebody from France wants to order a watch from you, you can ship it to France.
Reach out to us. We'll figure it out, yes.
Of course, okay. And and you are distributing how many brands on your e-shop? 30 brands.
30, yeah.
Okay. All these watches are coming from your stock, right?
Not all. Not all. I like to spread it out. So some are not. So
for example, this you don't sell for the moment.
Exactly. So and look at that. I would have missed the gem of the day if I did that. So that's why I decided to do that.
And they don't want to work with you, or they are too much back?
I just think it's production. It's just production. I've never approached them about it, but because I think they're having their own trouble just to keep up with their own customers. So.
They're gonna have, believe me, even more trouble now with this show, because we have a few 100,000 people looking at us between your channel and our channel. But it's always good to pay tribute to people who are
we're doing things the right way. And they are.
So thank you very much. The takeaway of this, Teddy, is that I wanted to show our public and our subscribers and viewers that you don't have to be a rich mogul in the media or in the whatever industry to have a proper watch on your wrist. You can start with from $150, $400, a little bit less than 1,000. You can still have style and have some real timepieces on your wrist, not some kind of second zone timepieces. All of these are real bona fide timepieces. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Teddy, and I give you an appointment, everybody, to the next episode of Sartorial Talks. And in the meantime, cheers.